which was, again, Judy Woodruff asking Sanders, the little mini Lenin, about how big the government would be for all of the freebies he's promising in clip number 5.
My question is, how big would government be? Would there be any limit on the size and role of government?
Of course there will be a limit. But when today you have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, when the middle class is disappearing, you have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Yes, in my view,
get off it already, you liar, you.
Has a moral responsibility to play a vital role in making sure that all of our people have a decent standard of living.
We have the highest standard of living in the world. More people don't work than any other place on earth. And he's still talking like it's 1930 and there's soup kitchens and child labor in a factory. Where is this idiot from? How'd they dig this creep up? Answer. It's quite simple. The people are stupid. Did you know that the millennial so-called generation, the drug addicts who are raised on Adderall, Ritalin, and other drugs, who are stupid, they may look pretty and smart, they're morons. Millennials pick socialism over capitalism. These smiling morons don't even know what socialism is. You know, I thought about Bernie's appeal, and one of the things that struck me that no one's talked about, so far as I know, is missing fathers and families. Have you heard that discussed, Robert? It came to me the other night that, you know, there's a lot of single-parent families in America, a lot of mothers raising children, a lot of absentee fathers. This guy Sanders is sort of like a friendly missing father that they wish they had, or a friendly missing grandfather who says he's for everyone who's oppressed. And he's kind of likable, you know, dirty suit, purple hands that he waves in your face every second. I don't know if I may have to leave the country. The thought of him waving those purple fingers for 8 years, I don't know, be enough to make me move to France. I might give up my American citizenship and become a talk show host in Paris and have to brush up on my French. The thought of him waving those engorged purple fingers at me for the rest of my life, I don't think I could take it. But aside from that, the reason the children who have been brainwashed in college after growing up on Adderall, Ritalin, marijuana, and pure and unadulterated brainwashing in the schools are going for it because they don't know that 80 million people died in the last century from socialism in the Soviet Union. Your ignorant talk is not around to criticize you anymore. Let's go to your socialist paradise of Cuba. Of course there's less crime because everyone who criticized it was either put away in a prison or killed. That's the country you want to live in?
You're stupid. Germany was not a socialist country like...
Of course it was, you ignoramus. National Socialism, you fool.
You dimwitted jackass.
Listen, you idiot. Nobody knows who you are. They all know who I am. And they listen to me because they know I back up my statements with facts. You're just an old man who is confused.
Isn't that what you are? You're...
All right, listen, moron. Listen, moron. Hey, listen, old idiot. Listen carefully. Let's forget Nazi Germany, National Socialism, Nazism. You don't understand that, so we'll make it easy for you. You came on this national show and you had the nerve to say there's less crime in socialist countries. Let's go to Cuba. Is that or not a socialist country?
Yes.
And there's less crime, is that correct?
Yes, in the United States...
Well, stop for a minute. Try to use the few brain cells you have left. Why do you think there's less crime in Cuba?
Because they have socialism there. The United States has got more...
Sir, you just said less socialism when you're saying there's less crime in socialist countries. What are you saying? KCMO, Kansas City. Daniel, welcome. You're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please. What's your topic?
I'm just a Bernie supporter. Wanted to defend him a little bit with you. Streets, libraries, schools, police, firemen.
Wait, hold on. We don't have any of those things?
We have those things in our capitalist democracy that are technically socialist. Would you?
And so what's your point? So now you want to go 100% socialist with Bernie?
Well, no. Okay, so here's my point. If you call 911, only one service will bankrupt you in America. And most other countries solved this ages ago.
Sir, I missed that point. If you call 911, what happens?
If the police show up, they're not going to bankrupt you. If the firefighters show up, they're not going to bankrupt you. But if
I don't know what is your point? I don't know what you're saying.
Just an ambulance, take you to the emergency.
Yeah, Daniel, could you please be a little more clear on what you're trying to say? You're a supporter of Bernie, and you're saying socialism is good. Is that what you're trying to argue?
I'm saying that we're already part socialist.
But I know that. I've said that for 20 years. We're 60 to 70% socialist already. And? So now you want to make it 100% socialist?
Well, I really view healthcare as a human right, and I don't know how a Christian could look at it as,
Here we go. Here we go. Bleeding heart liberal. So you mean all billions of people on the earth have a right to come here and I have to pay for their care?
Well, I'm saying if you call yourself a Christian and...
Well, stop telling me what I call myself. You're trying to sell socialism on a national talk show. You're alleging that health care is a right. It's a right for who?
So Jesus cured...
Stop with your Jesus already. This is not a theological discussion. It's a political discussion. Somebody has to pay for that health care. So if an illegal alien from Guatemala comes here with tuberculosis, I have to pay for that health care when in the past my grandfather was stopped at Ellis Island. If anybody had a disease, they were sent home. Well, what kind of country is this? We are bankrupt, my friend. Eight 855-407-2882, John on WABC. Go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Dr. Savage, I just want to let you know that Michelle Obama's not doing anything wrong by telling...
Oh, you're letting me know? You mean you're giving me your false opinion? You're not telling me, you're not letting me know. You're giving me your commie opinion.
Nothing communist, because the communists never lied. It was the fascist Nazis who always lied and tried to have a revision.
The communists never lied? Tell that to the 100 million people killed by communism in the last century. Didn't you read that in your college textbook?
Go back and change history like the Nazis did.
What did I just say to you? The communism killed 100 million people in the last century. Are you aware of that or not?
Yeah, but I'm not a historical revisionist. This is revisionism.
Wait, just stop changing the subject. How many Cambodians died under the communist Pol Pot?
Nothing. He wasn't a communist. In fact, we supported him against the Vietnamese.
Wait, but you're twisting the truth again. He was a communist. Do you know who Pol Pot was?
He wasn't. We supported...
I just asked you a question. Hey, stupid. Listen, if you're going to play stupid with me, I'm clicking the button and you're going back into cyberspace. Tell me who Pol Pot was.
He was the head of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, who we supported against the Vietnamese.
I didn't ask you who we supported. I asked you who he was. Do you know how he became a communist? Yes or no?
No.
Well, I'm going to educate you, dummy, so you can take time out from your Occupy Wall Street mimeographing. He was a college teacher who went to Paris to study Marxism. He came back to Cambodia, and he introduced Marxism to Cambodia. Fast cut to 3 million human skulls. Do you remember that?
The killing fields, yes.
Oh, thanks for the call, you schmuck, you. Michelle.
When I take over in this country, the rich are going to pay their fair share. And not only will they pay their fair share, but I am certain that others will pay their fair share as well, especially those who have any money in anything they've achieved. They must pay their fair share, because nobody has earned anything in this country, except it was on the back of others. And so I think a minimum tax rate for those making more than $10,000 a year should be at least 98%, and I would make it graduated, so people should not say that I'm unfair. Anybody making more than $20,000 a year should pay 99%. Anybody making $50,000 up must pay 100% of their income as taxes. She said, how are they going to live if they pay 100% in taxes? My answer is simple. Let them live like the others live with nothing. Let them go on welfare, food stamps, let them see what it's like. I want fairness. I want equality in this society. And therefore, I think that fair taxes are the fairest way to go. And 100% is fair enough for anyone making over $50,000 a year. And as far as the millionaires and the billionaires, I tax them at 150%. So how are they going to live? Because they got plenty put away. They could sell their houses, they could sell the yachts, they could sell the cars, and they could empty the bank account. So 150% up to $10 million, 300% if you make more than $20 million, and then we'll have fairness in America. I would also take all of the street people from Black Lives Matter, and I make them all of my cabinet, because they know how to make things run. They know how to deal drugs, they know how to sell, they know how to make a profit, they know how to buy, they know how to sell. I'm going to put them into the Department of Human Affairs. I'm going to put them into the Education Department because they speak such fine English. I'm going to take some of her Black Lives Matter to run the Health and Human Services departments as they know all about welfare. Believe me, we're going to have people on the ground who know just how to make this country work. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I'm running as a communist. Yeah. Well, step right up. Step right up. WBOB, line 7, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Yeah, Bernie, I'd like to ask you a question about national defense.
Okay, what's the question? What's the question?
Well, the question is, if it came down to that the only way to protect the United States was a nuclear strike in one of the Middle Eastern countries, would you be able to push the button, Bernie?
Absolutely not. I'm totally opposed to nuclear weapons. I want a nuclear-free world. A nuclear weapon can ruin your entire day. I've been against nuclear weapons since the 1960s. When I was an anti-war activist, I was never against the brave troops, but I was against the war. I am totally against bombs of any kind, whether they be stink bombs or atomic bombs. Now, that raises the question of how I would fight ISIS. We admit ISIS is filled with people who lack economic opportunity, and because of global warming, the desert was created a very long time ago. Remember that. Go back in time, and you will see that that was once a forested area in the Middle East. This is a direct example of why global warming must be stopped right now. Because if it wasn't for global warming and the trees dying, there would be trees and orchards in the Middle East rather than sand. And as a result of the global warming, from going back to the Pleistocene, you have a lot of violent Arabs who are miserable and unhappy from the heat and the lack of air conditioning. And to answer your question simply, no, I would not nuke them. I would offer them jobs. I would do a job creation program in the Middle East. I know an awful lot about jobs. Although I've never held one, I know a lot about it. That's your answer. Thank you.
Or the communist, Bernie Sanders, the loser bum. That loser bum, every time I see a broken car riding by with a distorted face on it, says, go Bernie. I know what they are. A bum. A ne'er-do-well into his late 30s who didn't earn a dime. A bum. Lived off his family till he was in his 30s, failed at everything. An angry radical spritzer. An agitator who never accomplished anything. He did nothing. Did you know he took his first bride, that Bernie did, to live in a maple sugar shack with a dirt floor, and she ditched him? She didn't want to use a toilet in the woods. See, then he's penniless, Bernie Sanders. He goes on unemployment. Okay, that happens. Then he has a child out of wedlock. Well, that's the norm in America today. That makes him even a better candidate to those with broken cars. Then he tries carpentry, but he couldn't even hammer a nail correctly. A friend told Politico magazine he was a terrible carpenter. His carpentry was not going to support him and didn't. Then he tried his hand freelancing for leftist rags, writing about masturbation and rape, I'm quoting now, for $50 a story. So he was a bum. But they said the only thing that Bernie Sanders was good at was talking and talking and talking about socialism and how the rich were ripping everybody else off. All he talked about was the redistribution of wealth. And the rest is history. This worthless loser bum is now being taken seriously by all the worthless loser bums in America. On the other side of the aisle is an overt, low-life, street socialist, communist, terrible loser professional agitator like Bernie Sanders, a guy who doesn't even believe he's getting this kind of attention. A left-wing fanatic that if you ever saw him, you'd say, who is that man? Call the police. He looks like a vagrant. Now, all of a sudden, he was like the college professor that you had who for 3 hours harangued you about America and then made you feel guilty about white privilege. That's Bernie Sanders. It's unbelievable to me. A communist from his dirty toenails to his dandruff. His dandruff flakes are socialistic. That's how bad this guy is.
And here he is, Michael Savage.
The scientific community is telling us if we do not address the global crisis of climate change, transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to sustainable energy, the planet that we're going to be leaving our kids and our grandchildren may well not be habitable. That is a major crisis.
If you were to say to him, how's the tongue today? Here's what Bernie said. The tongue is always very good. And one of the reasons the tongue is good is because the capitalists are the ones who made certain the tongue is not as good as it was in Poland. I got to tell you, as good as the tongue is today, the tongue was much better years ago before the capitalists put too much brine in it. The pickles are pretty good today, but the fact is the pickles are not what they once were. America's pickles have gone straight downhill with the advent of the corporate structure and the corporate mentality. When this was a family-owned business, when pickles were made by families, the pickles were much better. And as a result of corporate welfare, I must say, in all fairness, the corporate welfare has destroyed the American pickle. Yeah, that's my summary of the entire so-called Soviet-era debate. I felt like I was watching something from the Khrushchev era in color. You know, socialism, as Margaret Thatcher said, is a wonderful system until you run out of other people's money. Where is the money supposed to come from for all of these pie-in-the-sky liberal programs that Bernie is offering?
Our Navy is larger than the next 12 navies combined.
Oh, well, then we should sink the ships, right? Turn them into flower pots with propellers?
Well, that's the Republican jobs program.
No, we don't need a Navy. I suppose we don't need a military to you, right? None whatsoever?
We can scale it back a little bit. If we
scale it back. How would you scale it back? How much more would you scale it back than what Obama has done? How would you... All right, let's say you're a good socialist. How would you fight the greatest scourge the planet has seen since Hitler, ISIS? What would you do to stop them?
Well, let's be clear. George W. Bush created ISIS.
I don't care who created it. Irrelevant who created it. How would you stop them?
In creating a power vacuum.
I'm asking you how you would stop them. Stop already with telling me George Bush did it. How would you stop ISIS?
One of the things is we need to leave. We're a foreign invader. You know?
So you would walk away from young girls 8 years old being raped around the clock? Young girls who are not Muslim being sold on the auction block? That doesn't bother you as a bleeding heart liberal?
Are you for permanent occupation?
I asked you a question. You're a good liberal. You're a bleeding heart liberal. Are you telling me you would turn a cold heart to all the girls who were being sold as slaves? Hello? What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?
I think.
Where are you? I'm asking you. Look, you think you're a humane man. I asked you a simple question. Would you walk away from the atrocities that are being committed by these Hitlers and headscarves?
Well, what about North Korea? Why do we?
No, don't change the subject. Answer the question. You're a good Bernie supporter. How come that loudmouth, phony, babbling, psychotic communist has nothing to say about ISIS? He has more hatred for Republicans than he does for the Hitlers and a headscarf. Just like you do. You're all deranged. You're all deranged, you fools, you. You're exactly the useful idiots that Lenin wrote about. The useful idiots. You ask him one question, he answers another. You bring up the atrocities of ISIS, he brings up North Korea. And his whole problem is the military. Military is too big. Cut back on the Navy. The Navy right now is as small as it's been since World War I. That's the Navy. He wants less Navy after the... Okay, I'm not going to let him set me off. I went off enough already. We're going to go to other... I like this, though. This is good. The blood is flowing. That was a Bernie supporter. He wants socialism. He didn't argue how he'd pay for it. He didn't argue how he would take care of the atrocities, stop the atrocities being committed by ISIS. Instead, he blames George Bush. No answer to anything. Just pass the buck, and that's it.
Bernie wants to take the people that are lowest, the poorest, hardest people that have it the hardest in this country, and bring them up, help them get college, give them a good...
Let's stop with it. Let's stop with your fairy tale. How is he going to pick them up? How does he do that?
With schools, college is going to be free. I mean, that should be done.
Wait, what do you mean by free? Who's going to pay for the teachers and the electricity and the school books and the security guards? Who's going to pay for it? What do you mean free? Who's paying for the colleges that Bernie the communist is offering? Who's paying for it?
Well, you know as well as I do that Bernie has laid out how he does pay for it.
Stop with Bernie already. I don't like the name Bernie. Tell me how this crackpot is going to pay for this free college.
With taxing on Wall Street, with the taxing of the
With the taxing on Wall Street, what does that mean? What does taxing on Wall Street mean? Do you even know what you're talking about?
Okay, I may not be as informed as, a professional Wall Street Journal lawyer or whatever, but listen, I know...
But you ate it, but like a guppy in a fish tank, you ate it hook, line, and sinker. He dangled the worm, and like a guppy, you opened your mouth and you swallowed the hook. You didn't even think this through. What do you mean he's going to pay for it from Wall Street? What does that actually mean?
Well, look at the bankers that destroyed this country in 2008. They made this country.
Hold it. Which bankers? Name the bankers who were destroying this country.
I don't know their names.
You don't know anything. You are the typical useful idiot that Lenin wrote about. You have taken this lies, and you've gobbled it up, hook, line, and sinker. He dangled a worm in front of your mouth, and you open your mouth like a fish and you bit. You don't even know what he's saying.
But
do you have any idea what socialism has done in the nations in which it is practiced over the years? Do you know the basics of socialism?
Okay, you're asking me. Okay, listen, you want to compare Hitler?
No, don't give me an okay. Answer the question. Don't give me okay. Give me an answer. Do you know or don't you know?
Your question.
Let's take India, for example, and not waste the listener's time. Because my point of eating you up is not going to make me feel any better. Or you feeling worse is not going to make me feel any better. So let me give you a primer on socialism. Let's look at India before capitalism was brought into India in a big way, and India became a great machine of capitalism. Do you know anything about what happened in India after that?
In the world. Okay.
I'm asking a question. Stop with the gulping and going okay. What happened in India after capitalism was unleashed in India and all of the red tape and the bureaucracy was put out of the way so entrepreneurs in India could start building factories and making a lot of money? Tell me what happened in India.
Well, I know there's a horrible caste system in India where there is very separation in classes where...
Again, you don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what I just asked you? Can you even follow a discussion? Sir, how far did you go in school? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, no, I don't. Sorry. I can't answer your question. But
how far did you go in school?
I'm in college right now.
Ah, you're in college now. What year are you in Pittsburgh State Junior College?
I'm a junior, and I served in the Marines for 5 years, and I worked for a lot.
I don't care whether you served on the moon for 5 years. You can't even answer a simple question because you're not listening. You're buying this lie, hook, line, and sinker, but I think you're desperate to learn something, or you wouldn't have called the show. So let me repeat again. India was trapped in a caste system for forever. Do you understand that as step number one? And what happened in 1970 or thereabouts in India? The free market economics were introduced to India. What does that mean? It means the gigantic edifice of bureaucracy that had been established in India by the British, the bureaucracy was virtually taken off the backs of the entrepreneur. And what happened then? The average Indian man with money was able to invest in a small business or a small factory. And what happened in India then? Have you seen the landscape of India change since 1970? Well, that's a result of capitalism, not a result of Bernie Sanders-ism.
And the largest corporations, some of which make billions in profit, pay nothing in taxes, they are not to be asked for 1 cent of sacrifice in deficit reduction. Just working families, just children, just the elderly, just the sick.
That's the only overt member, socialist member of Congress, none other than the senator from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, who makes believe he's from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. The fact of the matter is we actually looked up Bernie Sanders' donor list. We'll have that for you a little later. You'll find out that he's talking through his rear end because he receives a great deal of money from the Teamsters Union, the National Education Association, United Auto Workers, the AFL-CIO. I have the whole list. The Service Employees International Union, MoveOn.org, American Wind Energy Association. He is one of the most despicable people to have ever inhabited a Senate seat. In fact, when he leaves that Senate seat, I would have it sterilized. Right